super stench in here. His name is Stefan. So, we doing a My Story animated, right? But I'm trying to look for someone. Or mom lies to me every day.
Everyone has secrets, right? I know I do, and you probably do too. But I doubt there's anyone out there that has as many secrets as my parents. It all started at my 10th birthday party, when two people rocked up and spilled the beans on the first dark secret my parents had been hiding from me. I was having the best day of my life. Finally, my parents had agreed to let me throw the princess party of my dreams, and all the girls from my class were invited. I was going to one of the best all-girl private schools in the country, and every time someone's birthday rolled around, we'd compete to throw the best party. So this year, I knew I'd win because my parents had gone all out and even rented an actual unicorn. Okay, obviously it was a horse with a horn, but you get the picture. Plus, my house was an actual mansion, and I knew all the girls would be jealous when they saw it. And yup, I was right. Everyone was impressed. Everyone except Bella. I'd only invited Bella because she was the most popular girl in our class, but when she gave me my gift, I regretted ever inviting her. She handed it over with a smirk, and when I opened it, she said, "Surprise! My mommy didn't believe you actually lived in a mansion because you smell so bad. So she thought maybe you could do with some soap." Bella had just ruined everything. It was so awkward, and what made it worse was that all the girls were laughing at me. All of them except for my BFF, Sarah. I was seriously about to cry, but suddenly a car came revving up the driveway, and things were about to get much worse than a bar of soap and Bella the bully. It was the old couple who lived next door to us who worked for my parents. They made such a scene and started screaming at my parents, saying it wasn't okay to have a party without their permission, and why hadn't they been invited? I didn't understand what was going on, but as they shouted at my dad, my mom gathered up all the girls and took them to the gate to wait for their parents. My party was a disaster, but not as much of a disaster as what I was about to find out. After everyone had left and Bella had shouted back at me, "Your party is the worst party I've ever been to in my life, you loser," my parents sat me down and told me they had something to tell me. Turns out the mansion didn't belong to us. In actual fact, the old couple owned it, and they didn't work for my parents. Nope. My parents worked for them. My mom was a cleaner and my dad was a gardener. I didn't understand. Why would they lie to me like this? Then they told me that the only reason I went to that rich girl's school was because the old couple paid for it, and that I had better behave or they might stop paying my fees. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. I didn't want to go back to school anyway because Bella would have already told everyone what a poor little peasant I was. That was a huge turning point for me, not just discovering that my parents had lied to me, but that actually...
How's she gonna say that? But I would've smacked her. Oh crap, my bad. I would've smacked her.
They were dirt poor. We were a charity case. And if it weren't for that old couple, would we have to live on the streets? I was so mad at my parents. They were so ashamed and kept apologizing to me, saying they just wanted me to have the life I deserved. But I was a smart kid. I knew there was more to it, and I was going to find out exactly what was going on. Word got out quickly, and Bella made my life hell. One day I got to school, and she was standing outside with a box that said, "Money for the Poor, aka Sasha." I couldn't believe it. People were actually dropping money in there. It was humiliating. I immediately went to find my BFF and told her I was feeling suspicious. Even she agreed that it didn't make sense that my parents were poor because she'd seen my dad out in a Porsche before, and my mom had all those fancy clothes. Suddenly I thought, what if my parents had just been robbing the old couple? But then my BFF said maybe my parents were hiding from someone. Maybe they'd done something bad and were undercover peasants. After that, I started investigating. Anytime my parents were working, I'd snoop around in their room. My BFF was right. They had so many expensive things. Why were they working as a cleaner and gardener? I decided to just go and ask the old couple. They liked me a lot, and now that I knew it was them that paid for my school fees and bought me all these fancy clothes, surely they'd tell me what my parents were really up to. I saw my mom cleaning their kitchen and felt so stupid. How had I been so blind before? I went to look for the old woman, but I heard her shouting and quickly ran to hide in the hall. And then I heard someone respond. Oh my gosh, she was shouting at my dad. She said, "You're putting their lives in danger. I don't want you living under this roof anymore." Then she stormed off. I ran back to our house before they noticed me. Okay, so my dad had obviously done something bad, but what had he done? I wanted to help him, but that night him and my mom were fighting, and I'd never heard them fight before. They were like the perfect couple. Our whole life was going downhill, and I couldn't bear it. The next morning, I decided I had to speak to my dad, but when I went through the kitchen, He wasn't there. Instead, I found a note that said, "You'll both be better off without me. Sorry, girls." Oh my god, he was gone. I ran to wake up my mom and told her, and she just started screaming. I was too young to know what to do, so I went straight to the old couple's house and asked them to come help. This was all their fault. If the old woman hadn't shouted at my dad the day before, maybe he'd still be here. I thought the old couple would be upset. After all, who would do their gardening now? But they were the opposite of upset. The old woman started laughing and said she'd been waiting for this moment for years. I felt disgusted by her. How could she talk about my dad like that? The old couple started comforting my mom, and I wanted them to get off her. Why was my mom even letting them hug her? And then she told me something that sent my whole body into shock. They said now that my dad was gone, we could come live in the big house where we belonged. Then my mom just lost it. She pushed them away and said, "When will you stop? I don't want to live with you. You've ruined my life." The old woman tried to reach out for my mom to calm her down, but my mom just screamed, "Mom, will you just leave me alone?" I couldn't believe it. Mom? But my mom had told me my grandparents had passed away years ago. So these people were my grandparents? Over the next few days, my mom cried nonstop, and eventually she agreed for us to move into the big house with her parents. I felt really uncomfortable with how many secrets were coming out. I just wanted to see my dad, but we couldn't get in touch with him at all. It was like he'd disappeared, and the whole time my grandparents kept saying that I should try and forget him. He'd abandoned us. I didn't believe them, though. My dad would never have done that. He loved us so much. You'd think I'd be happy now that I finally got to live in the mansion like a real princess, right? But it was horrible. My grandparents told me how my dad had gotten my mom pregnant when she was really young, and they didn't approve of him or his family. So the only way they could be together was if they worked for my grandparents. I was so confused. My dad didn't even have a family. He'd lived in a foster home. Or at least that's what they told me. By this point, I didn't know what to believe anymore. Bella soon found out that I was actually rich and not just some gardener's kid, and suddenly she wanted to be my friend again. Her grandmother was friends with my grandmother, and she knew so much about what was going on, it made me sick. She told everyone at school that my dad had run away, but that it was okay because now I got to live in the mansion again. And she expected me to want to be her friend? Yeah, right. Instead, I left a bar of soap on her desk with a note that said, "Use this to wash your mouth."
Now she want to be my friend. Now that, I gotta read.
Okay, because now I got to live in the mansion again. And she expected me to want to be her friend? Yeah, right. Instead, I left a bar of soap on her desk with a note that said, "Use this to wash your mouth out." Huh, served her right. So there I was, a rich kid like I'd always thought I was, but with no dad. A few years passed, and still we never heard from him. I started to believe my grandmother that he really had abandoned us. But the older I got, the more I felt like there was something else going on too. It bothered me how much my mom was fine with it. Like after a while, she just accepted it and said life goes on. But she couldn't fool me. I heard her crying, and sometimes I heard her wandering around at night. Just like me, she wasn't sleeping well. And I'm not joking, but I started to feel like someone was following me. One day, I was walking home from school with my BFF, and we heard a rustling sound in the bushes. It was winter, so it was already getting dark, and my BFF started screaming. I told her to keep quiet and that I'd just read in a detective book that the #1 rule if you were being followed was to pretend like you were none the wiser. But she just started running and left me there all alone. Geez, some friend she was being. I kept walking home and tried to act as normal as possible, but I was seriously being followed. Eventually, I couldn't handle it anymore, so I ducked behind a parked car and waited for my stalker to catch up to me. I was going to give him a fright, but when I leapt out and said, "Gotcha!" it ended up being a little old lady, and she almost fell over. I felt so bad and ran to help her and apologized. But she said it was okay and that I'd better hurry home because it was too late for a girl like me to be out. She was staring at me in a really creepy way, though, and I couldn't get her face out of my head. It was kind of weird. Had she been following me? Someone was. I could feel it. I started to think maybe it was my dad, and I really got my hopes up. Not a day had gone by that me and my mom hadn't thought about him. But at the same time, I was angry at him. Well, it wasn't my dad following me. About a week later, I was sitting in the park, and the stalker turned up. At first, I didn't realize who it was, but then it came back to me. It was the old lady from the week before. She asked if she could sit next to me, and then she turned to me and said, "I've been looking for you, Sasha." Whoa, this was crazy. How did she know my name? She told me there was something of mine she wanted to show me and asked for me to follow her, but she said I had to be quick or they might see us together. I had no idea what she was talking about and started to panic, but she had taken hold of my hand, and for such a little old woman, she was seriously strong. Plus, she seemed harmless, even if she had been following me and knew my name. We climbed into a car, and she told the driver to hurry. Suddenly, we were driving through the city so fast, and I realized I'd done exactly what no kid should ever do. get into a stranger's car. I asked her what she wanted with me, and she said I'd soon find out. But I didn't find out. The car came to a stop, and I opened the door to climb out. But suddenly someone grabbed me and said that the old woman was dangerous, and I needed to go with them quickly. It all happened so fast, I didn't have time to think. Then I noticed my grandfather was in the back of the other car, and I got in beside him. The old woman was standing outside the house shouting, and as I looked back, I swear I saw my dad's face in the window. This was too much. I asked my grandfather what was going on, and he said that the old woman was crazy and had been following me. I asked how he knew this, and he said my bodyguard told him. Huh? I had a bodyguard? This was insane. My grandfather just laughed and said, of course I needed a bodyguard, because what if my dad came back and tried to steal me away from them? At that moment, I wished my dad would do that. I then asked my grandfather to tell me where my dad was, and he said he was gone and it was better that way. What I didn't tell him was that I'd just seen his face at the window. I was going to take matters into my own hands and go there and find out what was going on once and for all. The next day, I went to school as usual and told my BFF to cover for me. I told her I wouldn't be long, but that if anyone asked, just to tell them I was sick and had gone to the clinic. I snuck out after our first class and tried my best to remember the way to the house I'd seen my dad in. I couldn't believe I might get to see my dad again after all these years. I finally arrived at the house and it didn't look like anyone was home, but still I knocked. When no one answered, I started to get nervous. I ran around to the other side of the house and started shouting, Dad! Suddenly, he appeared at the back door and grabbed me quickly and brought me inside. I couldn't stop hugging him, and he was crying. We stood there hugging for what felt like forever. Then I started shouting at him. All my anger came pouring out, and I asked how he could just leave us like that. He said he hadn't wanted to, but he felt useless and didn't think we deserved to live that way any longer. It felt so good to see him again. He told me he was making a plan so he could come visit soon, but there was some stuff he had to take care of first. Then he told me I'd better get back to school before anyone realized I'd snuck out. I told him I didn't want to leave, but he said I had to. And then I noticed all the photos on the walls. Photos of my dad and another woman and 2 kids. I looked around the house and suddenly felt sick. Did my dad have a secret family? How could he do this to us? No wonder my grandparents didn't approve. He was a cheat. He saw me looking around and he said it wasn't what it looked like, but it was too late. I had to get out of there. I ran for the door and then I noticed the old lady coming down the stairs. She looked so happy to see me, but I just ran right out the door. My dad was nothing but a liar. I started running down the street and that car pulled up again. This time my mom jumped out and told me to get in. I was so happy to see her, but I couldn't stop crying and asked if she knew that dad was cheating on her. Suddenly, the other door opened, and my dad climbed in. I told him to get away from us, but both my parents just told me to calm down and that I was old enough to know now. My dad is an undercover agent. Yup, he's a spy. Everything he's done so far is to protect us. My grandparents were really not happy about it because there had been some scary situations over the years. So that's why he'd left us. But he wasn't living with some other family. He was living with his mom, who just happened to be the old woman who stalked me. She had been looking for me because she couldn't bear to see her son so unhappy without being able to see me. She was just trying to help, but it could have been dangerous for us. Oh, and the pics of the other woman and kids were his sister and her kids. Oh my God, I had cousins! Now that I was 15, my parents thought I should know the truth, but they said it would still make things tricky. Then I thought to myself, how come they weren't crying at seeing each other again? Well, looks like they'd kept another secret too. This whole time they'd been sneaking behind my back seeing each other. Now it all made sense. The noises I'd heard in the night were my mom sneaking out. To be honest, I'm still processing it all. It's a lot for a kid to take in, but it does kind of make me laugh. Can you imagine what Bella would say if she knew my dad was a spy? Now who's a loser? My cool status just went way up. But obviously I won't be telling anyone. Let's just say I'm a pro at keeping secrets now.
I made my crush get stuck with me. I ain't gonna lie. I'm about to start watching this. Dude.
I walked into the elevator after a late night study session, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw my ex-boyfriend there. We've been broken up for a couple of months now, but clearly I wasn't over it. To make things easier, I put my earphones on and half closed my eyes. I didn't notice anything was wrong until I felt him tap me on the shoulder, and it felt electrifying. I took my earphones out and suddenly realized that the elevator wasn't moving anymore. It was stuck. I think we're stuck. My ex, Derek, voiced the obvious. I tried to gather myself and sound calm. Let's call for help then. As fitting as my suggestion sounded, we quickly realized that there was no signal. We were stuck in an elevator on Friday night. Just my luck, huh? I said with a nervous chuckle, hoping for some reaction, but he seemed indifferent. Maybe this is my chance to get him back, I thought. I tried to look more scared than I really was. This is terrible. I don't know what to do, I said, looking at him with teary eyes. Tell me it's going to be all right, I thought. Hug me and make it all better. Try the help button, Derek suggested without showing any signs of sympathy. I sighed and pushed the button as he suggested. Nothing. At this point, I was starting to actually get scared. I could see that he was as well. We tried to yell and bang on the walls, in hopes someone would hear us and call for help. When we didn't hear anything in response, we started brainstorming for a way out. Just like in the months leading up to our breakup, we end up just dumping ideas and not listening to each other at all. He rejects my every suggestion without even hearing me out and raises his voice like that's gonna make what he's saying more valid. This is just like you, I yelled in frustration. It's all about you, isn't it? You're not even listening to me. You never did. What? Derek frowned. What are you talking about? He asked me in a small voice. Is that how you feel? The genuine surprise on his face touched me, and with tears in my eyes, I told him how much our breakup affected me. Derek, now not being able to escape due to the closed space, listened to me this time. I told him about how lonely I felt during the last month of our relationship, and how I felt that he decided to break up all on his own without even giving us a chance. We talked and apologized to each other, the way I think we should have done instead of breaking up all those months ago. Just like I thought, this situation turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Let's try this again, I said, wiping my tears with one hand as I pushed the help button with the other. There were still no human voices, but this time we heard some static. As we listened to that, I heard something that sounded like footsteps outside. For a moment, it sounded like someone was walking and talking outside. We tried to yell to attract their attention. Alas, nothing came out of that. We were still trapped. The sounds of storm raging outside made the situation creepier. I could hear the wind, the sound of glass breaking, and something falling. If it's that serious, then the campus might stay closed for days while the damage is being repaired. While listening to that, I heard weird sounds coming from Derek. When I turned to look at him, I saw him on the floor, hugging his knees and hyperventilating. He was whispering something under his breath. I got on my knees beside him. Derek, what's... And then I remembered a podcast I'd listened to that described panic attacks and coping techniques for them, and realized that he was having one. Damn. Shh, it's going to be okay. You're safe. I held him close and helped him through it. Being this close to him and seeing him in such an intimate moment made my heart ache. It was all I'd wanted for the past months. After a while, he got better. His breath evened out, and he wasn't as tense. He was still in my embrace, though, and didn't even try to move away. Just when I was starting to get used to it, he suggested trying to get out somehow. The thought of getting out wasn't so appealing anymore, and I tried to talk him out of it for now. We could get out later, after we got some sleep and had more energy for brainstorming. What? Derek moved away and looked at me. That's not... Why would you want to stay here? What? Oh, is it 'cause I'm here? A shadow of suspicion fell on his face. Is that what you had in mind? To get me alone and get me to do what you want? What? You're being ridiculous. I'm stuck here too, remember? Why would I put myself in that position? I defended myself against his ridiculous accusations. Yeah, you're stuck with me. Someone you didn't want to break up with. So if you put 2 and 2 together, you get nothing. That's insane. And I'll prove it. I will get us out of here. But first, let's eat and sleep, I suggested with a sigh. I have some snacks on me and I'm so tired. Why would you have food after going to the library? I like eating chocolate while studying. You know that about me. I don't. I feel like I don't know you at all. We ate in silence, sitting with our backs against opposite walls of the elevator. He kept throwing suspicious looks at me. I felt hurt and betrayed. We're stuck in an elevator together, probably for a long time, with seemingly no help available, and he was picking fights with me like I'm his enemy. We fell asleep on the floor. A few hours...
I ain't even gonna lie to myself. I didn't even know that it was about the breaking up boyfriend thingy. I thought it was gonna be like something like she been like, or it was like a beat, like they was best friends.
Hours later, I woke up to the sound of a human voice coming through the speakers. I frowned as I felt some weight on my lap, only to realize it was Derek's head resting there as he slept. I couldn't help but smile. The sight of him sleeping so heartwarming. I didn't want to wake him up and get out now. So with a heavy feeling in my soul, I turned the speakers off to silence the voice of a man asking if there was anyone in the elevator, and I fell asleep again, with my hand tangled in Derek's hair. After waking up, we tried to look for a solution again. We didn't come up with anything. At this point, we were both pretty panicked. It's pointless, Derek said. No one's coming. We're doomed. As he said that, he pressed the button again. You've reached the security department, an automated recorded voice announced. Due to the weather conditions and the weekend, no one is in to respond to your request. Please wait until Monday and we will get back to you. We both cursed under our breath. Monday? 2 days away! We were stuck in a limited space with no reception, all out of snacks, and I thought of that person reaching out to us while we were asleep, and I stupidly turned the speaker off. For what? To hold Derek's head on my lap? I ruined our chances of getting out. Fear settled in my chest, and I started to yell and bang at the walls again. We've done this before, and rationally, I knew it wouldn't help any better this time, but I couldn't help myself. I felt trapped and guilty, and like Derek was right to call me selfish when we were breaking up. He joined me and banged at the walls again. All of a sudden, the elevator dropped down slightly, and the lights started flickering. I yelped and sat down on the
We have over 3,000 patrons in our Patreon and 15 contractors that we pay out. We paid those contractors
on the floor immediately. Stay down. Derek sat down as well and found my hand with his. It's all right, just stay down. For a few hours, we tried not to make any unnecessary moves. I fell in and out of sleep purely because there was nothing to keep my mind busy. I could still hear the storm outside, sometimes an occasional sound of a siren. Suddenly, a weird smell hit my nose. Wait, what's that? I realized what it was before I finished the sentence and winced. Derek, did you pee on the floor? Yeah, why? He didn't seem bothered at all. We have to stay here for God knows how long, and you choose to urinate all over the place? Calm down. It's not like I can just hold it in forever, Kath. Don't you want to pee? We've been stuck here for so long. I didn't drink much on Friday. Why? Derek's facial expression went from being defensive to suspicious in a matter of seconds. When I didn't reply, he sniffed. Just like I thought. It was because you were planning to be stuck, wasn't it? Oh, for God's sake, not this again. Maybe I was wrong. This wouldn't save us. Maybe nothing could. He was about to reply when a loud sound of a phone notification distracted him. Both of us immediately grabbed our phones. He's the one that got a notification, but no more came through, and there's no signal again. However, we thought this meant that there was hope and tried to find a spot with reception in the elevator. Though we didn't find that, we saw a trapdoor in the ceiling that we hadn't noticed before. Here, I'll help you up. I got on Derek's shoulder and tried to open the trapdoor. It took some effort, and then it opened to show the darkness of the elevator shaft. All my confidence went straight out. I felt my body start shaking. You have to go there, and... Are you okay, Kath? Kath? Derek spoke to me, and when I didn't reply, he helped me down. Oh, that's right. You're afraid of the dark. I forgot. After seeing me nod, he continued. It's all right. I'll be right here. I won't let anything hurt you. He comforted me, and after a few minutes in his arms, I felt brave enough to try again. This time, I got out onto the roof. 1 bar. That had to be enough. I tried to dial the police, the emergency service, the hospital, and soon enough realized that though I could hear them, and badly at that, they couldn't hear me. Disappointed and sad, with Derek's help, I got back down. Derek suggested going further up the shaft in case some of the floor doors might open, and he seemed to be understanding. It'd been a long day for the both of us. We needed the energy to continue trying to get out. We both fell asleep. When he suggested going up again after we woke up, I agreed. We got up onto the roof. It was very dark, and every step had to be carefully calculated. I took my time, making sure I wouldn't fall, but Derek rushed, thinking we might get out. We were climbing up when he took a wrong step and fell back down. The elevator dropped again. I was choking on my tears and climbed down to him, terrified and wondering if we would even get out of this alive. I can't go up again now. Derek shook his head and took my hand. No, we have to. I couldn't finish the sentence. I just yelled, letting out my desperation and frustration. Derek flinched but didn't stop me. I kept screaming. It was an inconvenient but effective way of letting out my fear and anxiety. After that, I reminded him of my desire to go up on my own. Now that I've conquered my fear, I was confident I could climb high enough and maybe get us help. Derek shook his head again. No, please don't. He brought me closer, and my heart skipped a beat. I won't be able to rest and recover while you're out here on your own. I'd be worried crazy. He brushed my cheek with his... with his fingertips. Let's go back into the elevator together, please. We were going to kiss for sure, I thought. I could feel his breath on my lips, and then he moved away. But that closeness touched me enough for me to give in first, leaving him alone on the roof to relieve himself there. When he came back down, he tried to rest to get over the post-fall dizziness. Suddenly, the speakers went on. "Is anyone there?" a man asked. And it sounded like a real voice this time, not a recording. I replied right away. Derek and I briefly explained our situation. The man sounded hesitant as he asked all these questions, and soon enough, get out of the elevator shaft and try to get out on one of the floors. The connection cut off while he explained some details. I felt mentally and physically exhausted, but ready to go there just to get us out. We've spent enough time in this metal box, trying to talk me out of it. We've tried, it's too dangerous. But I insisted. It was our only chance. He gave up after a while and agreed to let me go there. Derek himself was not feeling too well after his fall. I could see it hurt him when he stood up. I managed to get way up further than Derek and I did when we went together. I got to one of the set of doors. They, of course, were closed, and I listened carefully for any noises coming from the other side. I thought I heard something, but no one answered when I tried to scream for help. I thought I was going insane, hallucinating. As a last-ditch attempt, I got my phone out. To my surprise, there was some signal, and only 5% battery. I was getting more nervous each second as I dialed the number with my shaking hands and watched the phone drop from my hands and fall. I climbed down as soon as possible, thinking it could be on the elevator roof. My heart dropped when I heard the sound of my phone turning off. Here goes our last chance, I thought to myself. Feeling like a failure, I returned to the elevator. After telling Derek what happened briefly, I fell asleep, haunted by the look of suspicion on his face. I woke up a few hours later. Derek was right next to me, holding my hand. I smiled bitterly and thought about whether or not it was all worth it. Suddenly, he put his hand around me. That was the only answer I needed. Yes, it was. Once again, I thought that this had to be the moment we would kiss. "We have to try again," Derek whispered, just an inch away from my lips, and my heart fluttered, and then he reached for the help button. Oh, so that's what he was talking about. "Security department talking, we are aware of your situation." A voice suddenly filled the elevator. The lights stopped flickering. "Help is on its way, you'll be out soon. In the meantime, please stay calm and know that everything is okay." Right after the speakers went off, the elevator started moving. Derek and I got up to our feet, and he looked so confused, but didn't let go of my hand. When we got out, we saw a team of paramedics and some repairmen. Strangers surrounded us, asking questions, giving us food and water. I felt someone trying to drag Derek away and immediately squeezed his hand tighter. "No," I yelled. "I won't let him go, I won't." Derek frowned, taking a step closer to me. "It's all right, they just want to give us checkups." "I won't let you go," I repeated and clutched his shirt with my other hand. "I'll never..." Closer and put his arm around my shoulder. "We'll go together then." If only he knew that he was right all along. This was all my doing. I knew I'd never let him go. I needed a chance to get him back, and Derek wouldn't talk to me, so I had to find a way to force him to. I paid this guy $2,000 to break the elevator when the two of us would be there together. The fact that it turned out to be a stormy Friday night was inconvenient, but I had to go through with my plan. I had to get the love of my life back no matter what, and I succeeded.
Here's the fact, if you...
She did wrong for that.
I rubbed my eyes to make sure that I wasn't hallucinating, but nope. There he was, my apparently sick boyfriend, dancing intimately with a girl who wasn't me. They were too close to be just friends. I could hear my friends gasping behind me, just as shocked as me. I wanted to go there and pull them apart and maybe hit both of them, but I wasn't a violent person, and I know I couldn't hurt them physically. I looked down at my phone and saw the text I was just about to send my long-term boyfriend. "Hey babe, hope you're feeling better now," the text said. I pressed send anyway, just to give him a chance to come clean, I guess. I looked towards him and saw him take out his cell phone, type something, and seconds later, my phone beeped. "Yeah, just resting in bed. I'm sure my fever will be down by tomorrow." Just as I was about to get out of there, my boyfriend leaned down and kissed the girl, which gave me a better angle to see her face. "Oh no," my best friend said behind me, and I know she recognized the girl too. The girl my boyfriend was cheating on me with has been continuously harassing me for the past week or so. This girl was pure evil, and I had never met anyone so rude in my entire life. I could feel my blood boiling at the sight. If I don't get out of here, someone is going to get hurt. So I turned around and left the club, my friends close on my heels. I could feel this burning desire for revenge in my body, and I knew I was about to do something that could go really, really bad. It all started the morning I was running late for my chemistry class and was cycling super fast towards the school. I was in the bike lane, focusing hard on where I was going, when suddenly a car cut me off, making me fall and scrape my knees and hand badly. This day was about to go badly. I just knew it. I looked towards the culprit and saw a girl jump out of a black Lexus. She had sleek blonde hair, tan skin, and bright blue eyes. She was clearly beautiful, but then she opened her mouth. Are you blind? What use are those nerd glasses when you can't see where you're going, spaz? I looked at her with my mouth open, shocked at her unfair outburst. Clearly, she can see it was her mistake. But I began to say, but she cut me off before I could finish. Oh, whatever, she said, and jumped back into her car and drove away. The rest of the day was uneventful until I met my friends in the cafeteria for a quick lunch. As we were enjoying lunch, I saw the same rude girl from this morning enter the cafeteria. My face must have shown my shock because my friends noticed. Are you okay, Amanda? They asked. So I told them about this morning, which was clearly a mistake. My best friend is extremely confrontational and never holds back. She grabbed my hand and dragged me towards the rude girl. You must tell her that she was in the wrong, Amanda, my best friend almost ordered me. But I don't want to fight and make enemies. I can just let it go, I said, trying to prevent my friend from taking me any closer to the girl. If you don't tell her, then she'd do the same thing to someone else until she ends up hurting someone for real. You must set her straight, Amanda. I realized that my friend was right, so we walked towards the girl together. Hey, I'm Amanda. You might remember me from this morning. I introduced myself. How can I forget your ugly face? What do you want? She sneered back at me, and my friend and I physically took a step back at her offensive tone. What she wants is to tell you that you need to learn to drive straight instead of ramming others on the road. And oh, if you have some time left after spending hours to hide your black soul, you can learn some manners too, please. My best friend answered back in a super polite tone and a sweet smile on her face. A few people nearby snickered, and it seemed to make the girl snap. She suddenly stumbled slightly on her heels towards us. My hands automatically shot out to steady her, and before I could even touch her, she fell back on the floor and started shouting. How dare you push me? I will file a complaint against you. Her sudden accusation even shut up my friend. Just then, Jackson, my boyfriend, appeared next to me. He shot me a look before helping the girl to her feet. The rude girl looked over at my boyfriend once and gave him a big, flirty smile. Amanda, you should apologize to her, my boyfriend said to me. Jax, I didn't even touch her. I looked at him incredulously. Yes, she did. We both saw it. Two girls with flaming red hair suddenly appeared on the side. They weren't even there a minute ago. I started asking people who were around and saw everything to say something, but they just ignored me and walked away. She was mean to everyone. Everyone avoided her. My best friend then started arguing with them, and before we knew it, everyone was speaking at once. Look at what you've done, Amanda. Would it hurt you to apologize? Just say sorry? Jackson snapped at me and pushed me towards the girl. Fine, I'm sorry, I said to her. I grabbed my best friend and headed back to our seat, mad at both the girl and my boyfriend. He had known me since high school. He knows I would never try to physically hurt someone. The rest of the day was thankfully quiet, although I was still angry at Jax for siding with that girl. Weeks passed after that event. The weekend came, and many of the students were heading to a party. Jackson asked me to come, but I had a lot to study, so I declined. On Monday, I was in the library when the rude girl and her cohort of friends entered. I decided to ignore them, but it became difficult to do when they sat right next to me. Oh, look, the ugly nerd is here, one of them whispered, and the others giggled. Annoyed, I looked towards them, and that rude girl gave me a smirk. She had that look as if she knows something that I don't. I shrugged her off and continued to study. After an hour passed, distraught and staring at me, the librarian approached me, the girl now giving me a headache. We are in high school. Why must she act like a middle school bully? Just to get rid of her, I handed my bag to the librarian. Go ahead, check it, I told the librarian. Imagine my surprise when the librarian produced the cell phone from my bag. I knew it. She's a thief, the rude girl snarked. I sighed and looked at the librarian. If I was really a thief, I wouldn't be so stupid to keep that in my bag, and then I certainly wouldn't hand it over to you, would I? The rude girl laughed sarcastically. Now that you're caught, you'd say just about anything to get out of this situation. You know this will have serious consequences, the girl said, again with that knowing look. Well, there's one thing she doesn't know. The library has cameras and they work. I have spent many hours studying at this very spot. Why don't we check the tape and find out?